right. Good evening and good night, and welcome to the It's Your Perspective Talk Show. Today is Tuesday.
The echo.
There, it's gone.
Okay.
Yeah, today is Tuesday. Thursday. I'm sorry. Today is Thursday. My name is David, a.k.a. Kimber, a.k.a. Christian, alongside
Soup.
We're back.
Yes,
this is the It's Your Perspective Talk Show every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Today is Thursday, March 5th, 2015. And this is the It's Your Perspective Talk Show. Coming to you every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Give us a call, 340-201-9005. Check out the show. Go to our website, streaminglive.com. Go to our website, click on Watch Us Live, and guess what? You will see us live. We're in a high-tech, low-tech studio, coming to you from an undisclosed location here in St. Croix, Virgin Islands. Our guest tonight has heard that very statement probably a million times already. Alter Gary James is back. There he is.
Sweet music.
We'll be getting back to Gary in just a few minutes. Real quick here, no radio, no TV. The only way you can see this show is on the internet. You have to go to our website, streaming live from the VI.com. All our shows, recorded live shows, are on YouTube and Ustream. Go on those sites respectively and click on our channel. It's Your Perspective Talk Show, and you'll be able to see all our shows. We have 2 Facebook pages. I want to give a shout out to CHS class of 1982. All our classmates here, around the corner, worldwide, and even in the States. If you're hearing us right now, give us a call. Let us know how you're doing. Big ups to Vanessa, I-Grade Records, Julie, and Cherise King. And all our past guests, thanks for being on our show. The show's mission is just to inform and empower everyone, moving straight forward and up. And as always, Soup blesses the show with the It's Your Perspective poem. You ready, Soup?
Yes, sir.
All right, bless that mic, man.
Greetings, Rastafari lives. The greatest secret in life is that reality is nothing more than illusion. The physical world does not exist outside of our own belief system and the filter of our own mind. We are, in fact, subparticles of Jah, experiencing creation itself. But as subparticles of Jah, we have swayed over these creations. Everything you have experienced in life, every event, occurrence, object, and person, is nothing more than a figment of your own thoughts, beliefs, and words. The problem is, most of us are still asleep. When you understand this, your entire world shifts and you come to realize the true meaning of life is thus like a lucid dream. We have total control.
Yes, Soup, that's the It's Your Perspective poem. Soup's been blessing us from the very beginning, back in April of 2014. And our guest tonight has been here since April 2 of last year. Here he is right there. How you doing, Gary?
Good.
Yes, right.
Thanks for coming out again and spending some time with us. And Gary just wants to continue on. Tonight is his conversation continues, part 8. So how you doing?
Good. And I had a little slow start this week in the beginning.
Right.
With a little allergy, but I've recovered. And I feel bright-eyed and bushy-tailed.
Okay.
Ready for this evening's conversation. And race and the religion dimension is the topic again for the 3rd show. And this 3rd edition of our conversation of race and the religion dimension will finalize our initial treatment of the topic. But if Soup wants to inspire an uncharted course, we will apply it to a different topic going forward. So we want to put a pin on the conversation on race and religion this evening. And next show we want to deal with some other things. Just to point out a couple of pieces. When we started this conversation on race in particular, we mentioned the point that the perennial controversy between science and religion was substantially settled, at least 90% settled, which is what we posited. So there is another 10% that is not settled, and that 10% will perhaps be a part of the topic area that we discuss in the future. And I'm reminded of it when I listen to Soup's poem. And so we'll touch on it in the context of the 10% that currently exists in terms of the controversy between science and religion that is not settled. Also, I mean, there's much current events going on, and it's likely that our next conversation will deal with current events, particularly as it relates to this popular Christian-Muslim juxtaposition that is really engulfing the world, but emanates primarily from the Middle East. So we will look in terms of those areas next time around. But we want to close out this race and the religion dimension this evening. And we've made a thorough, initially we've made a thorough examination of the concept of race and its hierarchy, and concluded that the popular notion of multiple races is a mythical phantom that has generated a life of its own. We automatically think in terms or in race-based terms. So racial distinctions have really been crystallized in our consciousness. So we constantly think in those terms, in those outdated terms, because current scientific evidence, as we discussed, asserts that there is only one race of human beings whose origin was in East Africa millennia ago. So accordingly, the idea of multiple races is a social construct contrived to achieve subjective outcomes, and racial distinctions, as a matter of fact, have unequivocally been debunked and discredited. So we recognize that we are one human family. Nevertheless, we must acknowledge that this race-based paradigm is pervasive and is structured in the respective institutions and systems that constitute Western society in general. So we can't get away from it, but we should know what it is and what it is not. And we briefly examine world Christianity in the context of the respective East and West historical narratives. Specifically, we made a brief overview of the procession of the faith from its earliest days in the Middle East, Africa, and Asia, in the context of the Eastern Orthodox Communion, as well as Christianity in the Western Hemisphere by way of Roman Catholics and the Protestant Reformation and denominational Christianity, as we so well know it. Accordingly, we've observed that Christianity in Rome and Europe occurred subsequent to the first ecumenical council at Nicaea in 325 AD, 3+ centuries after the fact. And so we just want to mention that 3+ centuries after the fact, because there's great irony in the fact that the new convert to Christianity, Roman Emperor Constantine, there's great irony in the fact that he was able to convene the first ecumenical council and codify the domination of Rome over world Christianity. But for 300 years subsequent to the advent of Christianity in the Middle East, the Christian community was essentially a non-white community, and it existed in Africa, Asia, as well as the Middle East. Roman Catholicism, which, as we mentioned, was established in the 4th century, represents the beginning of Christianity in the Christian community in Europe. Nevertheless, the popular perception, particularly in the Western Hemisphere, is that Christianity is a white man's religion. However, a cursory examination of the historical procession of Christianity will yield the objective facts that the faith has non-white origins. Prior to the advent of Roman Catholicism, the Old and New Testaments were already established in the Greek and Hebrew languages. The Septuagint, Greek translation of the original Hebrew Bible, the Roman Catholic Latin Bible, also known as the Vulgate, was translated from the Greek. So it's a 3rd-generation translation. The Roman Catholic Latin Vulgate accompanied Rome's domination of the faith in the West from the 4th century to the 16th century, wherein the Protestant Reformation occurred. In the translation from the Hebrew to the Greek to the Latin, the original 81 books of the Hebrew Bible was lost in 15 of the 81 books was lost in the translation. So at the end of the day, the Latin and English translation of the Hebrew Bible was reduced to 66 books, 39 Old Testament and 27 New Testament. So for more than 1,000 years, the Holy Roman Empire imposed Catholicism on their global realm by way of the Vulgate Bible. In this context, we want to highlight the fact that the Latin Bible was not available or accessible to Roman subjects and the citizenry. The scriptures and associated values were administered and determined by the clergy and ruling class and imposed on the subjects and citizenry. Subjects and citizens were forbidden to own or possess a Bible, and should they somehow encounter a Bible, they would be unable to read it because, as I said, it was in Latin, and many folks during that period were not able to read. So the Bible was essentially a sacred as well as a secret document during Rome's exclusive monopoly of the faith in the Western Hemisphere. And during Rome's colorful and well-documented history of religious and cultural imperialism, the once diverse and eclectic Christianity became a virtual monolith. The Eastern Orthodox branch of churches was essentially compromised following the Council of Nicaea, while respective ascetic, esoteric, and monastic Christian communities went into hiding, and their sacred manuscripts, in fear of the Roman Catholic wrath, were hidden. Many groups as such were branded heretical and suffered the fate of the Roman Inquisition, while their documents were confiscated, burned, or successfully secreted away. The exclusive monopoly that the Holy Roman Empire enjoyed on Christianity, in the Western world, divided the faith by way of the Protestant Reformation in the 16th century that resulted in Catholics and Protestant division. In practical terms, what occurred was a beef between King Henry VIII of England and Pope Clement, which arose because the Pope refused to grant a divorce to the king. At the end of the day, King Henry denounced the Pope and established the Church of England, and was able to accomplish his divorce. The establishment of the Church of England was the impetus for the Protestant Reformation movement, which ultimately established denominational Christianity as we understand it today. But in addition to Henry VIII establishing the Church of England with the Archbishop of Canterbury at its head in 1539, the king also authorized the translation of the Latin Bible into the English language, and he, King Henry, made the Bible available in English to the general public. So teaching the Bible was no longer the exclusive province of the Roman Catholic clergy, as the Protestant movement made the Gospels available and accessible to all directly. But subsequently, there were many other translations of the Holy Scriptures, including the popular King James Version, which was published in 1604. But perhaps a hallmark of the Protestant Reformation is that many English translations were inspired and made available to the public as a result of the Protestant movement. Some of the English translated Bibles include Wycliffe, Tyndale, and of course we know Joseph Smith authorized the Book of Mormon. And these are but a few examples of English translations. And this is how we have become exposed to the scripture in the West. Hence, the Protestant Reformation divided Christianity in the West between Catholics and Protestants. But on the other hand, the Protestant movement ushered in a plethora of English translations of the Bible, and the good book became available and accessible for the common person to own. While the 1200 plus years that the faith was consolidated in the exclusive province of the Roman Catholic clergy, the new Protestant dispensation made the gospel broadly accessible to all who would seek or be willing to examine the faith. So Catholicism and Protestantism were consequential to the development and advancement in the New World by way of the Caribbean and the mainland colonist countries. Of course, facilitated by Christian pioneers and colonists with the English Bible in hand. At the birth of the New World dispensation, the English Bible came along with the various colonists and was the cornerstone of establishing and advancing the faith in the New World. But the idea of race-based distinctions and how it became a dynamic factor in the was also advanced as the faith became intersected with economy, economics, statecraft, as well as geopolitics. So in this context, the role of race and its relative hierarchies regulated the black race to the lowest in the pecking order, and the race paradigm was institutionalized in Christianity by way of respective missionaries that introduced the faith to enslaved Africans in the colonies of the New World. The pseudoscience of the 16th century offered much scholarship, validity, and efficacy to the multiracial thesis in textbooks and relevant publications. Characterized in history as the age of reason and the age of enlightenment, pseudo-intellectuals put in place building blocks upon which the industrial States and Western Europe advanced this social mythology. Concomitantly, the Christian faith, as defined and applied by the respective European denominations, has formulated a worldview that accommodates the popular Greco-Roman narrative and the prevailing sensibilities embodied in the popular racial dichotomy. But race and religion and the religion dimension have a very odious as well as colorful history. Because the backstory regarding the procession of world Christianity is colorful and well documented. We'll reference several historical observations in order to highlight the correlations and conjunctions wherein popular Christianity and the advancement of the notion of multiple races are facilitated, coincidental, and enabling. Thus, Christianity is perceived in general as a white man's religion by way of Catholics and Protestants churches, respectfully. On the other hand, the black race and other races are positioned as heathens, and their lands fall under the doctrine of discovery. Now let's just develop that briefly. The division of the world under the authority of the Vatican. We've discussed that earlier. And briefly, following Columbus's return from his first voyage by way of the Treaty Tordesillas, the Pope divided the world in half for the benefit of Spain and Portugal's military conquest of the new lands and people. Accordingly, all of the conquered lands in the New World were claimed in the name of Roman Catholicism. The indigenous people are in fact subjects of the ruling Christian authority. Subsequently, Spain and Portugal became the first European colonial masters of the New World and of the post-Columbian era. This was the launching of the doctrine of discovery that justified the conquering and subjugation of the world under white supremacy, manifest destiny, and divine authority of the Holy Roman Empire. So now, following that, we have the transatlantic enslavement of Africans. And both Catholic and Protestant Christianity are complicit in this peculiar enterprise that conscribed Africans to slavery in perpetuity on plantations of the various European colonies. Enslaved Africans were beasts of burden on the respective Caribbean plantations and on the colonial mainland that generated the economic wealth of the European powers. The wealth accrued to the European colonialists, and many argue was consequential to financing the industrial development of the West. The slavery system remained in place for centuries. However, in the 3 decades of the 19th century, when the abolition of slavery generated popular support and critical mass in the various European colonies and homeland of the European and U.S. slavery systems, the systems were abolished. Slavery was abolished in 1833 in the British colonies, in 1848 in the Danish West Indies, and in 1865 in the United States, for example. The abolition of slavery negatively impacted the gross national product of the various colonial master countries. But what followed the abolition of slavery was the scramble for Africa and the Berlin Conference of 1884. So it was only 10 years after the abolition of slavery in the United States that the infamous scramble for Africa occurred, wherein the former European colonial slave masters conspired to conquer the whole continent of Africa. During the transatlantic slave trade, the colonial powers exploited the coastal areas of Africa and made virtually no incursions into the interior of the continent. The scramble for Africa was a concerted effort on the part of former European slave masters to control the interior of the Dark Continent. The perennial rivalry between European countries competed vigorously for the spoils until the advent of the Berlin Conference that formally partitioned Africa into 50 countries that characterize the continent today. At the end of the Berlin Conference in 1884, Africa was sliced up like a cake, the pieces swallowed up by 5 rival nations: Germany, Italy, Portugal, France, and Britain, with Spain taking some scraps as Britain and France were trying to take each other out.
Can I just,
Yeah.
as you mentioned in these 5 nations too, and when you look at it right now to see how these nations have proceeded themselves now in world history, when you take Germany, Italy, Portugal, France, Britain, and piece of Spain, it's basically now, and you look and you go back and look at history, these 5 countries have fallen the same way as when they invaded Africa.
It's the same equation.
You understand me? You know, so that's a very deep. So people have to open the eyes, got to open up and see what.
The eyes have to open up because when you look at Africa, such as it exists today, you have to go back to the Berlin Conference to get an appreciation to what those countries did to Africa and how they split it up and why it is a basket case as it is today.
Yes.
You see? And it remains a continent that is a breadbasket by way of the resources that have enabled the Western countries to develop their national economy.
Yes. Yes.
You know, from the slave period to the Berlin Conference, wherein now all of the European countries have access to the mineral wealth and the various countries of Africa, now that they have gained their freedom by way of the gun from the colonial masters, are still fighting each other with those same weapons, while the countries of the West and now China are in Africa exploiting all of the resources while the natives fight. You see?
Yes.
And so whose interest is it for Africa to remain a basket case while these resources are continually drained and the economies of the respective countries become manipulated
Yes.
by mineral wealth and one-dimensional economic development. So it is a serious scenario
Yes.
that we need to look into and appreciate why things exist as they do.
Yes. Yes.
And it's not by an accident or the fact that black folk are inferior, you see, or all of these other
Right.
diminishing and derogatory things that keep us in the state we're in.
Right.
It's all a matter of how things have been structured and maintained, and how the people in general buy into certain concepts, you see, and
They even
operate them.
They even maintain it more than the man that introduced
Absolutely.
it. That introduced it to them.
Absolutely, and to a large extent, these ideas and concepts are so sophisticated that they move and they live under their own power
powers
and strength.
Yes.
You see? And I mean, one of these issues that remain just amazing to me is the fact of race, as we talk,
right.
because everybody, notwithstanding what current science says, everybody's consciousness has this crystallized racial dichotomy, you see. And although science has discredited and disproven it,
Right.
this has been a part of the human sensibility for centuries, and this is all people want to believe.
Right.
And those folks who have been favored arrangement
Right.
ensure that it remains.
Exactly.
You know.
Exactly.
So although science has debunked and discredited the multiracial paradigm, it ain't going nowhere.
Nope. No, because the people have to release it.
Yeah.
The people have
You
to
see?
release it.
And so we have to understand that, and we have to understand how to negotiate around this stupidness.
With this, yes.
You see?
Yes.
So anyway, their soup goes again. But at the center of the exploitation and rivalries among the Europeans was the self-styled philanthropist, the King of Belgium, King Leopold II, who controlled the center of the African continent, and we all know the Belgian Congo.
Yep, the Congo.
And how
the richest part of
that's
Africa.
right, and how many people lost their lives
Yep.
under the rule of King Leopold.
Yeah.
But 30 new colonies and protectorates were established. 10 million square miles of new territory and 110 million days subjects, the population at the time, acquired by one method or another. Historians have over the years offered theories and speculations as to why the leaders of Europe undertook such an undignified rush to build empires in Africa. Historians are as puzzled now as they were then, In his book, The Partition of Africa in 1893, Scott Kelty was certain that it was one of the most remarkable episodes in the history of the world, yet that he was confused and overwhelmed by the rush of jostling events. But subsequently, it was the Berlin Conference that was Africa's undoing. And the colonial powers superimposed their domains on the African continent. During this time that the conference was held, 80% of Africa remained under traditional, indigenous, and local control. What ultimately resulted was a hodgepodge of geometric boundaries that divided Africa into 50 irregular countries. This new map of the continent was superimposed on the 1,000 indigenous cultures and organic regions of Africa. The new colonies, the new countries lacked rhyme or reason. It divided coherent groups of people and merged together disparate groups who really didn't get along. So when we look at Africa currently, such as it is, we need only to examine the results of the Berlin Conference and what preceded it in order to understand the unfolding events as they are currently occurring in the world. But now, the First Ecumenical Council and the East-West Schism, which is important for us to zero in on the religious dimension relative to race. So we explored the East-West Schism that occurred in the 4th century during the advent of the Roman Catholic Church at the First Ecumenical Council. We observed that this advent occurred 300 years after the birth of Christianity in the Middle East and as it flourished in Africa and Asia. Although Christian communities were persecuted at this time by the Roman Empire. We noted that the Roman Emperor Constantine excommunicated the Ethiopian bishops from the council and all future councils, branding them heretical. The Roman Church celebrated world Christianity by way of the Nicene Creed, which codified the theological dichotomy between East and West Christianity. Accordingly, both historical narratives, East and West, continued their development to the current period. So it is what it is, and we are what we are. But based on what we know now of history, the question of what if provides interesting speculation. Over the centuries, there has been much speculation as to what if Ethiopia's biblical canon and historical Judeo-Christian narrative was not excluded from the popular Western canon of Scripture. During the establishment of Rome's domination of the growing Christian religion, the Greek translation of the original Hebrew scripture was translated into Latin, as we mentioned. And the Latin Bible became the book that converted Europeans, countries, to the Roman Catholicism under the authority of the papacy. Following the Protestant Reformation, the Latin Bible was translated into English and made accessible to the common person, thus breaking Rome's monopoly of the Christian word. Henry VIII to King James, the English translations of the Holy Bible proliferated in the known world. But again, what if? What if the fathers of the Roman Church retained all the books in the original Hebrew Bible as opposed to removing 15 of them? At the point of the First Ecumenical Council in the 4th century, the Ethiopian Church had already established 81 books as the canon of Scripture of the Judeo-Christian religion. Therefore, it's hard to imagine that the fathers of the Roman Catholic Church it's not hard to imagine that the fathers of the Roman Catholic Church ultimately decided to include only 66 books in the Latin translation of Scripture, because the targeted 66 books facilitated a convenient introductory narrative for establishing the dispensation of Roman Catholic dominance of Christianity. The Roman Catholic fathers and historians embedded the Greco-Roman historical narrative that embodied their religious as well as secular origin and worldview. Hence, Greek mythology and Greek fraternities undergird the popular culture that we understand as Western culture and the educational system. Interestingly enough, the great Greek poet and historian Homer, in his classic book, The Iliad, was very pointed and unequivocal as to whom he revered and received great learning from. Homer very graciously and without reservation credited the Egyptians for much of his education, and he referred to Ethiopia and Ethiopians with divine attributes vis-a-vis the land of Punt, meaning the land of God. And the other Greek heavyweight, Herodotus, as well revered the Egyptians and mentioned the role of Ethiopia. Be that as it may, some suggest that if the Ethiopian component was included in the Latin canon of Scripture, it would have made it difficult, at minimum, if not impossible, an impossible task to impose a multiracial narrative and social construct that was contrived to position Africans and black people as less than human beings. Accordingly, the advent of the Negro as an inferior race of human beings, and perhaps the transatlantic slave trade of enslaved Africans, could not have been accomplished as it was and institutionalized should the Ethiopian component of Christianity and civilization had been completed. Also, the contribution of Africa by way of Ethiopia to world Christianity is explicit and unequivocal and positions black folk in general, Africa and Africans in particular, as intrinsic to Judeo-Christianity and the advent of the human family. But the die was cast, and the ancient East-West schism and dichotomy was established and institutionalized. Hence, the procession of the Judeo-Christianity and the world, such as it is what it is. The religious world and the secular world continue their precarious interface, and sometimes border on the diabolic. So we're going to leave the discussion on race and the religion dimension there. But as items come up and subjects reveal themselves and topics come up, we will discuss race and religion, those factors, in the near future. And in fact, race, or rather religion, may have, well, it does have an application in perhaps the conversation that we want to do next in terms of the juxtaposition between Christianity and Islam as we are facing it in the Middle East and indeed the world. So thank you again, my brothers.
It's always a pleasure, Gary.
Yeah,
always
thank
a pleasure.
you, Gary.
Bring this wisdom here to the people, you know. Enlighten them and motivate them, you know. So.
Well, I enjoy it. You guys inspire me, and I had thought about the possibilities of this venue, this digital venue that you guys have. And it was very fortuitous that we would meet.
Yes,
and
yes.
I would be have the opportunity to be introduced to this venue that you brothers put together.
Yes,
and continue to inspire me. And so I'm looking forward to continuing with you guys and doing some other stuff, you know. In fact, I'm thinking about well, I've done more than think about the follow-up scenario.
Right.
So is this your last one, or is you just?
No, we got. I'm scheduled to do 14.
Okay.
You know.
That's right.
Okay. The way
So
you
what
were,
is this, 8 or 9?
This is 8. The way you were talking, I wasn't sure, but okay,
No.
we're good.
Well, we got 14, but I got some other stuff
That's right.
already that I could introduce to you guys, but I won't do it yet because we want to cover some other interesting things, and at the appropriate time we will mention it to you and disclose it to the public. But there is, to put it short, I'll give you a hint, there is a database that we will make available to this program and listeners.
Okay.
Which deals further with the historical, religious dimension.
Okay.
And it would have some things in there that will provide some ongoing research and stories that we could discuss around some broader issues, as well as the 10% of the controversy between science and religion that we have yet to discuss. So we
still have a good piece to deal with.
Oh, we got a kaleidoscope of stuff to deal with, bro.
All right.
So thank you and good night, and I brothers, and there's nothing you could do about it.
You love you too, Gary. Thank you again. Thank you again, man. You know, it's always good stuff, as Kim would love to say. You know, and high knowledge. You know, inform them and enlighten them.
Yeah, that's it for
Stop sleeping. Stop sleeping.
Yeah, we gotta work on
Stop sleeping.
Man.
You know. Yeah, we gotta wake them up. Available, and that's what this platform is.
Yeah,
you know,
that's exactly what it is.
To send it out.
I'm with you.
Okay.
You know.
All right.
All right, man. Our guest tonight is author Gary James, Black Politics 2.0. His conversation continues tonight, which is part 8, just ended, and he'll be back on March 19th, 2 weeks from tonight, to continue on with part 9. And he says he's got like 14 parts, so a few more Thursdays, few more every other Thursdays to go. I want to say thank you again, Gary, for coming out.